Wet your hands with water. Apply soap, rub your hands palm to palm and wash the backs of both hands and in between your fingers. Then palm to palm with fingers interlocked. Clasp your hands together and rub. And then clean around the thumbs too. Rub your fingertips in the palms of your hands and finish off with the wrists. Rinse your hands really well with water and dry them thoroughly with a paper towel. Use the towel to turn off the tap. Your hands are now clean.
Good morning students, this is Gulrez Azizi again. I hope you're doing well. So this is the time for your English lecture. We're going to read the rest of the paragraphs of the chapter In the Kingdom of Fools. That's chapter number 4 from your English book Moments. So I'll just do a quick recapping. In previous paragraphs, in previous video, if you remember that there was kingdom, and the king and the minister of that kingdom were fools. They were idiots. So what they did, they changed the day into night. That means whatever the works were being done or were supposed to done in the daytime, they wanted to do it in the night, and whatever the works were supposed to be done in the night time, they wanted to do it in daytime. And also, if you remember that a guru and his disciple, they came, but after realizing, the guru left the kingdom, but the disciple stayed on. After that, the previous some paragraphs I will just give reference, otherwise it will be too long. So just to remind you that a wall was collapsed. It fell on a thief who was trying to break in to a rich merchant's house, and he was killed. So after that, the king trying to find who was the real culprit. So now I'm going to read the next paragraphs, starting from the page number 22, the last paragraph. Who is this rich merchant who kept you from finishing this poor woman's jewelry, made her walk up and down, which distracted this bricklayer, which made a mess of his wall, which has now fallen on an innocent man and killed him? Can you name him? So now, if you remember in this previous paragraph, just before this one, the goldsmith was brought to the court because the dancer who was the old woman who was dancer before when she was young. So she said to the king that it was not her fault, it was the goldsmith fault who made her come and go several times, and when this bricklayer saw him. So now this the goldsmith was brought to the court, and he was asked the same question, and what he told to the king, that it was not his fault, because a rich merchant who had a wedding coming, so he wanted his jewelry to be made quickly, and that was the reason the goldsmith had to ask the woman to come next time. So whenever she went there, obviously the jewelry was not ready. So after saying this, the king asked the goldsmith, Who is this rich man, a rich merchant, who kept you from finishing this poor woman's jewelry and made her walk up and down, which distracted this bricklayer, which made a mess of his wall? So he inquired who was that rich merchant, and because of that, obviously the rich merchant wanted his jewelry sooner than the woman, the dancer. So she kept going and coming all the time, so that distracted the bricklayer, and that was the wall was not built strong, and that had already made a mess. The goldsmith named the merchant, and he was none other than the original owner of the house whose wall had fallen. Now just it had come full circle, thought the king back to the merchant when he was rudely summoned back to the court. He arrived crying, "It wasn't me, but my father who ordered the jewelry. He is dead. I'm innocent." So that goldsmith was asked the name of the merchant, and he told the name of that merchant. So who was that merchant? Who was the same person whose house wall had fallen. So now the king was very happy that he found the real culprit, and now the justice had come full circle, means wherever it started from, it had come to the same point. So it started with the merchant, who was obviously brought to the court on the complaint of the thief's brother. So now it had come to the same person. So now he was rudely summoned, means strictly summoned for the court. So now he arrived crying, "So my lord, it wasn't my fault, and it wasn't me, because obviously it was his father who ordered the jewelry, and now he is dead." So the merchant is saying he is innocent. But the king consulted his minister and ruled decisively. In fact, it should be pronounced like decisively. So decisively means it comes from decision. So what he did, the king consulted with his minister. So that minister was also fool. He was also a fool. He was also an idiot. So you can imagine that what advice he was going to give him. So after speaking with the minister, the king ruled decisively. So what he said, "It's true, your father is the true murderer. He is dead, but somebody must be punished in his place. You have inherited everything from that criminal father of yours, his riches as well as his sins. I know at once, even when I first set eyes on you, that you were at the root of this horrible crime. You must die." So now see, hear these wordings. So now the king is saying, well, it is true that your father is dead, and he was the one who ordered the jewelry. But because you have inherited, means you have got as a kin of your father, you got you must have got house, you must whatever the assets your father had, you have got all those things. So you have gotten his sins also. So whatever the crimes he has done, you have inherited that as well. So now the king is saying he knew at once when he saw that merchant, when he saw first. So he knew already that he was the root of this horrible crime. So he must die. And then he and he ordered a new stake to be made ready for the execution. As the servants sharpened the stake and got it ready for the final impaling of the criminal, it occurred to the minister that the rich merchant was somehow too thin to be properly executed on the stake. He appealed to the king's common sense. The king too worried about it. So now the decision was final. It was decided that that merchant whose house wall fell on that thief, that must be punished. So the king ordered a new stake. What is a stake? It's basically a wooden post to which a person was tied to be punished. I'll show you the picture. In ancient time, you must have seen the Jesus Christ hanging on a stake. So that is the stake. Okay, and so the king ordered for a new stake to be made for his execution. And as the servants sharpened the stake and got it ready for the final impaling of the criminal, it occurred to the minister that the rich merchant was somehow too thin to be properly executed on the stake. So when it got ready, when the servants and the workers, they sharpened, sharpening. So they sharpened the stake and got it ready for the final impaling of the criminal. Impaling is pierced with a sharp it could be like an instrument. It could be either like a stick, skewers, something like that. So that is called the impaling. So when they got it ready, what it happened, the minister thought that probably it was too thin to be the merchant was too thin, somehow too thin. I mean, he was
and
not
the
fat.
stake was not good enough
to
execute him on that. So what he did, he appealed to the king's common sense. The king too worried about it. So he talked to the king and he conveyed this thing to him. And the king, that fool king, he also got agreed with that. So they both become worried. So the king and the minister, they got worried that how they would do it. What shall we do? He said, when suddenly it struck him that all they needed to do was to find a man fat enough to fit the stake. The servants were immediately sent all over the town looking for a man who would fit the stake, and their eyes fell on the disciple who had fattened himself for months on bananas and rice and wheat and ghee. So now the time has come for that disciple. If you remember that his guru had told him that it was not going to last longer, and obviously the day would come that they would do something to you. You don't know what they would do. So this is what let's see. So what idea they got, that all they needed to find a fat man to fit in that stake. So they sent out servants, people, immediately to find out anybody who was fat enough to fit to that stake. And when they wondered about that area, so who they found? They found that disciple, and by the time he had become quite fat man. So because he had been eating bananas, rice, wheat, and ghee. So now, what have I done wrong? I'm innocent. I'm a sannyasi, he cried. So when they caught him, so he started saying that, oh, what I've done wrong? What's wrong with that? I haven't done anything wrong. I'm innocent. And he also claimed that he was a sannyasi. That may be true, but is the royal decree that we should find a man fat enough to fit the stake, they said, and carried him to the place of execution. He remembered his wise Guru words, "This is a city of fools, you don't know what they will do next." While he was waiting for death, he prayed to his Guru in his heart, asking him to hear his cry wherever he was. The Guru saw everything in a vision. He had magic powers. He could see far, and he could see the future as he could see the present and the past. He arrived at once to save his disciple, who had got himself into such a scrape through love of food. So the people who caught the disciple, so they replied to him that, okay, that could be true that you were sannyasi and you haven't done anything wrong. But this is royal decree. Decree means a decision made by a court, a royal court. So they told him that they needed somebody, a fat man, to fit the stake, and they carried him to the place where the person had to be executed. So now the disciple remembered his Guru's word, what he told earlier, that obviously this is the kingdom of fool, and they would do, you don't know what they would do. So the Guru, because the disciple, the Shishya, he remembered him in heart and asked for help. So the Guru had power, magic power, so he could see far and future, past. So he quickly arrived there to save his disciple. As soon as he arrived, he scolded the disciple and told him something in a whisper. Then he went to the king and addressed him, "O wisest of kings, who is greater, the Guru or the disciple?" So when the Guru arrived, as soon as he arrived, he scolded his disciple, and then he reached to his ear and said something into his ear, whispering. And then he went to the king and talked to him, addressing him that, "Oh, wisest of kings." Wisest of kings means the wisest person, the wisest kings among the kings. So he asked one question: who was greater, the Guru or disciple, the Guru or Shishya? Of course the Guru, no doubt about it. Why do you ask? So the king said, of course the Guru is greater than disciple. There is no doubt about it. And he also asked that why he wanted to know this. Then put me to the stake first. Put my disciple to death after me. So this is what the Guru requested the king, that he wanted to be put on the stake first and then after the disciple. Now on the page number 25. When the disciple heard this, he understood and began to clamor, "Me first. You brought me here first, put me to death first, not him." So because the Guru had told him something whispering in his ear, so now he understood what he had to do. So he also started acting, and he asked the king that he was brought here first, so he should be put on the stake first and then the Guru. The Guru and the disciple now got into a fight about who should go first. The king was puzzled by this behavior. He asked the Guru, "Why do you want to die?" "We chose him because we needed a fat man for the stake." So now the Guru and disciple started fighting to go first on the stake. And seeing this, obviously the king got quite shocked and puzzled with this behavior. So he asked the Guru why he wanted to die. And he also explained the Guru that because they needed someone fat enough to fit the stake. So that's why the disciple was chosen. "You shouldn't ask me such questions. Put me to death first," replied the Guru. So instead of saying why he wanted, he just said to the king that please don't ask this question, such question, and put me to death first. Why? There is some mystery here. As a wise man, you must make me understand. So now the king got more curious about this thing, and he asked the Guru, why? There should be a mystery here. There should be some secret. And because you are a wise man, you are a Guru, so you must explain this to me. "Will you promise to put me to death if I tell you?" asked the Guru. The king gave him his solemn word. The Guru took him aside, out of the servant's earshot, and whispered to him, "Do you know why we want to die right now, the two of us? We have been all over the world, but we have never found a city like this or a king like you. That stake is the stake of the God of justice. It's new. It has never had criminal on it. Whoever dies on it first will be reborn as the king of this country, and whoever goes next will be the future minister of this country. We are sick of our ascetic life. It would be nice to enjoy ourselves as king and minister for a while. Now keep your word, my lord, and put us to death. Me first, remember." So the Guru asked the king that if he tells him that the secret, then would he put him to death first? The king gave him his solemn word, very serious word. So now what the Guru did, he took him aside so that the servants cannot hear what he was saying. So earshot is basically a range where you tell something and to the range of ear, and the person can listen to you. So he just took the king away from there, from the servants, so that the servants could not hear him, and whispered to him, and he told him very slowly. So what he told, that if he goes to the stake and die first, then he will reborn as a king of this country. And whoever goes next on the stake after that, he will become the minister of that country. And here the word ascetic, A-S-C-E-T-I-C, that means like a life which is quite disciplined, and they have to quit something. So just for example, a religious life, just like sannyasi does, he spends his life. So this is what the Guru told in his ear, that because this stake is the stake of the God of justice, so whoever goes on that stake first, he will be reborn as a king of this country, and whoever goes next, he will become the minister of this country. So now he's saying that now keep your word, my lord, and put us to death. Me first, remember. So now he again requested the king to put him to the death first and the minister next. The king was now thrown into deep thought. He didn't want to lose the kingdom to someone else in the next round of life. He needed time, so he ordered the execution postponed to the next day and talked in secret with his minister. So now, obviously, because he was fool, so he decided. And the second thing, obviously, these words were from a sannyasi, from a guru, and any person could believe a little bit. Especially the fool like this king would definitely believe him. So the king postponed. He said that okay, we'll execute these two tomorrow. So he needed basically time to think about that, and so he postponed it. And he talked to his minister in private. It's not right for us to give over the kingdom to others in the next life. Let's go on the stake ourselves, and we will be reborn as king and minister again. Holy men do not tell lies, he said, and the minister agreed. So while talking to his minister, he explained him that obviously because the person, the guru, is a holy man, is a sannyasi, is a guru, so he would not tell lie, and we should not give this kingdom to somebody else just like that for the next life. So why don't we go to the stake and reborn as we are? So the king will be king and the minister will be minister. So minister also agreed with that. So he told the executioners, we will send the criminals tonight. When the first man comes to you, put him to death first, then do the same to the second man. Those are my orders. Don't make any mistake. So the people who were executing persons, executioners, so the king told him, the king ordered them. Okay, so what he ordered? He ordered that they'll be sending the criminals who were supposed to be punished tonight, means that night. So rather than waiting for next day, they decided to do that night only. But instead of the guru and disciples, they decided to go themselves. So they ordered to their people that we will send the criminals tonight, and whoever comes first, the first man who comes, put him death first, and who comes next, put him the second one. And he also reminded that this was his order, and he reminded not to make any mistake. That night the king and his minister went secretly to the prison, released the guru and the disciple, disguised themselves as the two, and as arranged beforehand with loyal servants, were taken to the stake and promptly executed. So that night what happened? First, they went secretly to the prison where the guru and the disciple was captured. So firstly they released them, and they disguised themselves just like guru and disciple. Disguised means making doing makeup. So the king did makeup to look like the guru, and the disciple did makeup to look like the minister did makeup to look like the disciple. And it was already planned beforehand. So he had already told his loyal servants who were he took them in confidence, so they ordered them to take them to be executed, and it was done. So it was promptly executed. They were promptly executed. When the bodies were taken down to be thrown to crows and vultures, the people panicked. They saw before them the dead bodies of the king and the minister. The city was in confusion. So obviously next morning the body was thrown out in front of crows and vultures to be eaten. So the people got panicked because before they were thrown, so they saw the bodies and who they were. One was the king and the other one was the minister. So now the entire city, the people got confused. All night they mourned and discussed the future of the kingdom. Some people suddenly thought of the Guru and the disciple and caught up with them as they were preparing to leave town unnoticed. So before the bodies were thrown to the crows and the vultures, the people of that city, they saw the bodies and they got panicked, they got confused. So all night they mourned, they cried and thought that what they should do. So suddenly an idea came into their mind that the Guru and the disciple, so they went and they met with them as they were preparing to leave without unnoticed. Unnoticed means obviously secretly. So they didn't want anybody seeing them going out from that city because they knew what had happened. So they just wanted to flee from there. We people need a king and a minister, said someone. Others agreed. They begged the Guru and the disciple to be their king and their minister. It didn't take many arguments to pursue the disciple, but it took longer to pursue the Guru. So what they requested, the people of that city requested that they needed a king and minister. So they requested the Guru and disciple to become the king and the minister. So it didn't take much time to convince the disciple, and he agreed quickly because he was a greedy person, as you know, but it took some time to convince the Guru. They finally agreed to rule the kingdom of the foolish king and the silly minister on the condition that they could change all the old laws. So what they agreed with the people of that city, they agreed with them that okay, they are ready to rule the kingdom, but in one condition. So they should be allowed, or they should be able to change all those old laws, the foolish laws like sleeping in the daytime, working in the night, and other laws what was made by that king and minister, which was foolish. So on that condition only they agreed to stay on and be king and the minister. From then on, night would again be night, and then would again be day, and you could get nothing for to do. It became like any other place. So obviously from thereafter they changed the foolish things, sleeping during the day, doing all those works done in the night time, and all those work like they were supposed to do in the daytime. So they changed, and that was also changed. So the people could not buy now everything just for a do. So it became just normal like the other place. It was quite long story, but nice, and I hope you enjoyed. If there's anything left, clarification, it's quite simple to read and understand. I'm sure that when you read it, it is self-explanatory. There are few words which are a bit difficult, not very difficult. I'm sure I've already explained them. If not, if you're not understood anything, you can always contact me as usual. And sorry about the background noise, because the weather is very bad. It's hot and humid. So the fan is on. So that's the noise of the fan. You could hear. Okay then. So see you next time. Bye bye for now.